welcome back to Marvelous Disney, the podcast where Dan Graney and I talk about Marvel, Disney, theme parks, movies, and the occasional moment where the company quietly rewrites its own rule book. I'm entertainment writer Jim Hill, and I am joined, as always, by the dynamic Dan Graney. And Dan, this past week, it didn't feel like Disney panicking, but it did kind of feel like Disney choosing its words carefully.
Yeah, there was no big emergency press releases, no, don't worry, everything's fine, messaging, but there was a lot of small, deliberate signals, they kind of say, we know where this is going.
Which is interesting because on the surface, it kind of looked a little chaotic.
Well, okay. So let's see. We've had weekly Marvel teasers, substantial leadership shifts at Lucasfilm, some pretty interesting theme park changes that rewrite entire philosophies. But, at the same time, none of it actually felt accidental.
No. It felt managed.
Okay, so we could call this controlled chaos.
And maybe even smoother transitions than we're used to from the mouse. But before we get to that, let's acknowledge our sponsor, who knows a thing or two about smooth transitions. And that is unlockmagic.com, where you get real discounts on Walt Disney World and Universal Orlando tickets, sometimes upwards of 12% off. And just so you know, Unlock Magic is run by the exact same team behind the DVC rental store and the DVC resale market. So pick your dates, grab your tickets, and go. Unlock Magic makes it that easy to rack up some pretty significant savings. And when you get your tickets, please tell the nice folks at unlockmagic.com that it was Dan and Jim who sent you. All right, so Dan, let's start. Hey, it's a Marvel podcast. Let's start with Marvel. That's where most of the noise is right now, especially around Avengers Doomsday.
Yeah, specifically the way Marvel's been rolling out these weekly pieces of footage.
Now, did you see where these 4 teaser trailers or what are the Russo brothers calling them now?
Clues? Or stories.
Yeah.
Stories?
There we go. Something like that. Anyway, these 4, whatever you call them, Avengers Doomsday things have now been viewed a collective 1 billion times, or so says Disney and Marvel's PR team.
Yeah, then we could say that's a lot of people sifting through clues.
Which makes me now think of earlier clues, like, say, that post-credit scene in Captain America, Brave New World, which, I want to remind folks, just out in theaters a little more than a year ago, February of 2005.
Okay, yeah, this is the scene. You're talking about where Sam Wilson goes to meet Samuel Stern aboard the raft.
Right.
Is that right?
Yeah, and remember, Samuel Stern, the leader, super villain. Okay, so this is what the leader says to Cap. It's like, we share the same world, don't we? This world you would die to save? It's coming. I've seen it in the probabilities, seen it plain as day. All you heroes protecting this world. Hey, do you think you're the only ones? Do you think this is the only world? You'll see what happens when you have to protect this place from the others.
It's coming. The others, not the only world. He's pretty much laying this out rather plainly that something big and, something bad is just over the horizon. So, okay, given that there's stories out there about this post-credit scene for Captain America, Brave New World, because it was reportedly reshot to accommodate the change from Kang the Conqueror being the big bad for Phase 6 to Doctor Doom. That's significant, right?
I agree, but which makes me kind of sad because I actually loved what Paul Rudd did with his interior monologue in Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which, by the way, That came out in the far distant year of 2023. And remember, at the end of that Peyton Reed film, there was that great little scene where Scott Lang is bringing the ice cream cake to the table, but at the same time thinking, so wait, did I just kill everyone? Is everyone going to die now because of me? I mean, we beat him. We stopped him. He was getting out, and then he didn't get out. But then he said something bad was coming and that everyone would die if he didn't get out. It's like, oh God, what did I do? What did I do? You know what? It's probably fine. So.
I love the last minute reversal. You know, that sort of a classic justification at the end.
Yeah, but here's the thing, Dan. All right, 2 of the Avengers, Sam Wilson and Scott Lang, we know have advanced knowledge that something bad is coming. And that the Russos, when they have previously worked on MCU films, they love to do callbacks to films in this series that sometimes go back years.
Okay, so here's a classic example. When Steve Rogers, his exchange with Nick Fury at the end of Captain America, the First Avenger, which hard to believe came back, that's back in July of 2011. But Fury, is after the, Steve realizes that he's just on a big elaborate soundstage and he's running through Times Square, and Fury says, look, I'm sorry about that little show back there, but we thought it best to break it to you slow. And Steve says, break what? And then Nick says, you've been asleep, Cap, for almost 70 years. And then there was like that kind of moment. And then he's like, you going to be okay? And then Steve said, yeah, I had a date. And then we had to wait nearly 8 years. I think it was April 2019, which is when Avengers Endgame finally arrived, to have that particular story thread pay off. So we got to see Steve reunited with Peggy, and these two, finally get their dance.
And this is why I think the Russo brothers, being the sort of classic story constructionists that they are, I don't think they're going to shy away from these story threads in Captain America, Brave New World, and Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, which intrigues me about Avengers Doomsday. To be particular, when will Sam Wilson and Scott Lang admit that they know something bad is coming? And more to the point, who do they tell this to?
Yeah. Okay, so that brings us back to what the Russo brothers began saying this past week, which is these things we're seeing out ahead of Avengers Doomsday, they're not trailers, they're stories. So, I mean, this feels deliberate and it feels intentional.
But also, this reframes the whole initial rollout of this film, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, because trailers are, they're meant to explain. I mean, that's how people view them. And stories are meant to invite interpretation. Marvel clearly wants fans leaning forward and not waiting to be told what to think.
But wow. I mean, this also, I guess, explains why Marvel hasn't exactly been rushing to shut down speculation.
Oh gosh, no, not to correct it or clarify it, because we've talked about this. But every theory video, every podcast breakdown, every shaky cam theater description, it's free advertising,
and it's scale.
Yeah, it's kind of funny if you think about it, because if this were, I don't know, 10, 11 years ago, if this were 2014, Marvel would be furious. But in 2026, I mean, this is just kind of how attention, it's kind of how it works.
Lots of fans obsessing about decoding numbers, glitches, countdowns.
Well, yeah. Yeah, and I'm one. And it is fun, although I think the bigger picture feels like it might be simpler.
It seems there are a number of sites, videos, threads, all working furiously to decode those numbers. But the simplest solution may be that Marvel is building momentum towards something very specific.
And that would be the Super Bowl.
Wait, By the way, folks, closer than you think. Sunday, February 8th. And I'm going to remind you, Dan and I are recording this week's podcast on Sunday, January 18th. So that's what, 3 weeks from tonight? And I just want to remind listeners that Marvel has used this stage before. February 4th, 2018, 30-second long ad for Avengers Infinity Wars. And February 3rd, 2019, 30-second long ad for Endgame. And again, the thing about the Super Bowl, biggest audience you can buy. And by the way, Dan, I'm going to suggest that you, as well as our listeners, go back and look at those Super Bowl ads for Infinity War and Endgame, because once you know the films and you look at the images they picked, especially Endgame, I was sitting there watching it tonight, pre-gaming the show, and it's the shot of. At one point, they show you Steve tightening the thing on his shield, and when oh my God, this is the moment where he's standing, alone against Thanos and the army bearing down on him, and he's just pulled himself to his feet, and he's going to do it, and it's just sort of like, holy cow! Just some great choices made by Disney and Marvel's advertising team.
Oh yeah, I mean, I love Columbo and I love a mystery, and a lot of this feels less like mystery for mystery's sake, and maybe more like training the audience to pay attention again.
Oh, I love that, and I will say that there's one rumor out there that does sort of neatly fit into this whole emotional side that sort of run through all of the teaser, story, clue, whatever they are, and that's supposedly that Haley Atwell's Peggy Carter may have a much larger role in Doomsday than people might expect.
It would be awesome. Which also makes sense if this movie is really about legacy.
And I say this as somebody who loved the 2 seasons of the Agent Carter show on ABC.
Oh, so good.
Yeah, but again, Peggy has never been a supporting character. She's foundational to Steve Rogers' entire story.
And if you're bringing Steve back in a meaningful way, which it clearly seems to be, you don't do that without Peggy mattering.
Excellent point. And especially in a multiversal story where choices, versions, and consequences are the point.
Yeah. Now, you were also hearing quiet confidence out of Marvel regarding Fantastic Four.
Yeah. Now, this intrigues me because it's supposedly, what is it, that Marvel is rumored to be already planning a sequel even before Doomsday and Secret War land?
Yeah. Well, I mean, that tells you that Marvel believes context will probably change perception.
Okay. Well, and that these characters are embedded in the larger narrative that they're about to roll out. And again, which will cause audiences to reevaluate the Fantastic Four. By the way, gotta say, the most recent teaser, story, clue, whatever the hell it is, I loved watching Ben Grimm interact with the new King of Wakanda. That was so sweet.
Yeah, that shot is incredible.
Yep.
I also think that shot is missing probably half the picture because it seems oddly framed that he's on the left side of the screen and there's just nothing on the right side. I would say, well, that would be bad cinematography, but I also think that's Marvel playing with us.
There you
but
go.
Again, this is all a very different posture than let's just see how opening weekend goes.
If you zoom out, this really does not feel like Marvel chasing hype.
Oh, no. I think it feels like it's pacing it.
Which, by the way, folks, brings us to the other side of Disney that's been quietly doing the same thing. But before Dan and I travel to a galaxy far, far away, there's this.
When you want your spring break to feel like... and your kids' pool day to feel like... and your hotel bed to feel like... Ooh, and room service to feel like... Because at Hilton, hospitality feels like...
Your cabana's ready. Would you like fresh towels?
It matters where you stay. Book now at Hilton.com. Hilton, for the stay.
This is a test of the Reese's broadcast system. If you're currently eating Reese's, this is just a test. Continue living the dream. If you aren't, oh boy, drop what you're doing. Go. Get Reese's now. Do not stay calm. Push people out of the way.
Does it ever feel like you're a marketing professional just
speaking into the void?
But with LinkedIn ads, you can know you're reaching the right decision makers, a network of 130 million of them, in fact. You can even target buyers by job title, industry, company, seniority, skills, and did I say job title? See how you can avoid the void and reach the right buyers with LinkedIn ads. Spend $250 on your first campaign and get a free $250 credit for the next one. Get started at linkedin.com/campaign. Terms and conditions apply.
And we're back. Okay, so while Marvel has been playing with controlled chaos, Lucasfilm has been doing something else entirely, and that would be what, Dan?
Succession.
Suddenly I feel like Fiddler on the Roof. Succession. Anyway, all right. Sorry. Anyway, look, Kathleen Kennedy stepping back, and then Dave Filoni and Wen Brennan stepping forward. And key detail, folks, important to understand, not a last-minute scramble. In fact, it was fascinating to see these things described as exit interviews. But in exit interviews, Kathleen Kennedy said that she started planning this transition with Bob Iger, Disney CEO, and Alan Bergman, head of Disney Studios, 2 years ago. And that Filoni Brennan were her recommendations right from the jump.
Always there are two. Sorry, thinking of something else. But the important thing here is that this isn't abrupt.
Yeah, I mean, and more to the point, Kennedy isn't vanishing. She's still going to be producing upcoming films.
Yeah, I mean, this isn't. A complete regime change. It's more like a handoff.
Yeah, a very Disney-style split with creative leadership and business leadership working in parallel. In fact, again, in the interview with Deadline, which again, headline, exit interview, Kennedy basically described Brennan as the steady hand on the business side. She ran ILM for years, and while Filoni has been deliberately brought along on live action with Jon Favreau as his mentor, with Ahsoka as proof of concept.
Yeah, I had mentioned this offline, but for some reason, this felt really reminiscent of when Eisner and Frank Wells stepped in. Obviously, but a different time, but different roles with shared responsibility.
Absolutely. And now this leadership shift lines up interestingly with something new happening, and well, for now, just at Disneyland, specifically at Galaxy's Edge.
Oh yes, because Disneyland is openly pivoting away from the idea that Galaxy's Edge must live in a single era.
Yeah, and going forward, in fact, Drew Taylor pointed this out to me just today. It's like this starts literally the weekend that Mandalorian and Grogu debuts in theaters. But this Star Wars land in Anaheim effectively becomes a Star Wars greatest hits experience.
And frankly, that's kind of what most guests want.
But the weird part of this, Dan, is, they tested it in front of us in plain sight. Do you remember last year when, the fact in social media they teased, who is this character in black who is going to be appearing in Galaxy's Edge? And, and for those of us who knew, Luke's outfit from Return of the Jedi. It's Luke. He's going to go to, the Black Spire Outpost. But, and But you just heard that in my voice, folks. The emotional recognition, and that's the thing. By doing this, by taking this approach with Galaxy's Edge, you get a baked-in nostalgia, a feeling that takes you back. And well, for me, again, what really stood out about Kathleen Kennedy's exit interview with Deadline is that she names that instinct. In fact, she talked about how every filmmaker who came in to talk about a Star Wars project that they wanted to make with Disney and Lucasfilm started off by saying, "Let me tell you about the first time I saw Star Wars with my dad," and and this is the emotional engine that Disney is now steering back toward.
Yes, and for the record, the first time I saw it was in May of 1977. Anyway, in a theme park, that emotional engine is sensory. So, I mean, we're talking about hearing John Williams' score, seeing Vader, seeing Luke, instantly knowing this is Star Wars.
Which, okay, just to be clear here, folks, not for lack of trying. I mean, they did try to expand what Star Wars is. In fact, this kind of brings to mind, I have a friend who's a themed entertainment professional, and he talks about when you're designing a land for a theme park or a major new attraction for a theme park, you sort of have to think of your theme park guests as people at the beach.
Okay, I like where that's going.
Okay, well, and again, think about it. If you look at a crowd at the beach, you got your observers, you got your folks who the towel on the sand. They're watching the nice, attractive people in tiny bathing suits go by. Maybe they get up and stroll by the water. But then, also you got your waiters. That they're knee deep in the water and they're cooling off, but they're not fully committed. But then you got your swimmers. They dove in and they're splashing around. They're having a great time. And then you got your divers. I mean, you get people who are under the waves and really looking around down there. And think about that in Harry Potter terms, Dan.
Oh yeah, you've got interactive wands, you've got bounty. I mean, it's the whole thing.
There we go. Well, but here's the thing: Disney, when they were looking at Star Wars, and what they could potentially do with this in a theme park setting, they focused on the mer people. The super fans, and in fact, let's be honest here, folks. They built the Galactic Star Cruiser for the mer people,
and there just weren't enough of them. You could say that Atlantis is a niche market.
There we go. Okay, so and what we're seeing now with Galaxy's Edge and this notion of Luke and Leia will be here and Rey, will be there. This is a Galaxy's Edge that is now making an effort to serve everyone. Where the Galactic Star Cruiser, again, was just asking guests to, hold their breath for 2 days underwater. So. Mind you, very ambitious.
Yeah. I mean, ambition is also very expensive to maintain. I mean, Galaxy's Edge, we could look at that. And that's Disney experimenting with immersive storytelling. Obviously, a response to, Harry Potter Land. I don't think there would have been a Galaxy's Edge had there not been Harry Potter.
No, you weren't wrong.
That level of immersion. But Star Cruiser was kind of that philosophy, but taken to its most extreme.
And just to be clear here, folks, I did in fact get to go to Star Wars Galactic Star Cruiser, and honestly, what they built was extraordinary. But I also have to say this: it was exhausting. And also very, very expensive.
Yeah. Yeah, I gotta tell you, Jim. I mean there's the thing right there. Get this, I was literally in Walt Disney World with my family
Mhm.
right after
Mhm.
the Star Cruiser opened, and I'm a deep, deep, deep Star Wars obsessive, and I could not justify it, because for the price of those 2 or 3 days on the Star Cruiser, we instead saw all 4 parks, stayed in 2 different resorts, and had a vacation that was twice as long.
Mhm. And by the way, here, just to be clear, folks, I was a guest at a fan event that Len and I did. Our sponsor at the time, Storybook Destination, set this up, so I got to experience this gratis. But even then, my flinty New England cheapskate, just sort of, how much? Oh my God, But again, Dan brings up a very important issue.
Yeah, I mean, this wasn't even about my level of fandom. I mean, I just had to look at value and flexibility and time. And I will say this, and I said it back then,
Mhm.
and I still say it, and it's like, if Galactic Star Cruiser had been set during the original trilogy era,
Mhm.
if it had been Vader and the troopers, the stormtroopers and the rebels and that iconography, you get me somebody walking around in a gonk costume, I would have made a very different decision.
And what's fascinating is that Disney did a bunch of after the fact surveys, and and then surveys to follow up on those surveys. And Dan, I don't think you're wrong. I think that's the lesson that Disney came away with. That they went too narrow.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Galaxy's Edge and Star Cruiser,
Mhm.
they were just built around the idea that guests wanted to live inside this sort of very specific moment in canon.
Mhm.
And now, obviously realize that most guests don't necessarily want or need to role play full time. They they just want to visit Star Wars.
Yeah, and to be fair to Kathleen Kennedy, because the story has always been that. In fact, I was talking with Dan about this off mic. That originally the Imagineers spent their first year working on Star Wars Land, with the idea that at Disney Hollywood Studios they were going to build Mos Eisley, and that was the cantina you were going to go to, the cantina that Obi-Wan and where Obi-Wan and Luke had met, Han and Chewbacca. And it was Kathleen who supposedly came to Bob Iger and sold him on the idea that, like, look, you are celebrating Star Wars past, where we are building Star Wars future. And I think the smarter play here would be to invest in a land that celebrates the new stuff, where it's Ray
Hmm.
and it's Kylo and it's Poe. And you know, uh,
Hmm.
and again, she probably had data to back that up. And Kathleen genuinely believed that the future audience would connect more with Kylo and Ray rather than Luke and Vader.
Well, it's kind of interesting. It's like this kind of reminds me of. I remember, being at the midnight show of Phantom Menace,
Mm.
and the immediate reaction that the hardcore, meaning original, maybe 10-year-old boys at the time when they
Mhm.
saw it in 1977, the fans had that reaction, and it was a very not the reaction I think Disney thought. The only person, the coolest head in all of that was George Lucas. Is like, it's for kids. They'll like it later. And you know what? 20 something years later, I was at Star Wars Celebration, and the love that people have for the prequel trilogy is, I mean, it makes you rethink, like, maybe I'm looking at those, I was looking at them with the wrong set of
There
eyes.
we go.
Because, like my niece and nephew, that's their Star Wars. So, with Kathleen Kennedy, I can't say that maybe that she wasn't wrong. I think maybe she was just early.
Oh, I love that interpretation, especially on the heels. As you mentioned, just to watch in the past decade, to watch the love that the prequels have gotten, and more to the point, to just watch, people like Hayden Christensen who were like, oh, you
Oh,
like me now?
yes.
Okay, or just, and I'm blanking his name, the actor who played Jar Jar Binks.
Ahmed Best.
There we go. To watch the love that Ahmed is getting now, from the real fans of that film. I mean, that's just a lovely thing. But
It is.
anyway, for me now, what's even more fascinating about what's going on right now is how Marvel now fits into this conversation. You caught the thing that the Marvel related thing, the tail end bit of the news with the transition here, right?
Yeah, this is kind of interesting. I'm excited about it. I'm gonna get them, but this kind of like snuck right in at the very end. It's So we've got Disney loosening its grip on that rigid canon in the parks, and Marvel basically doing the opposite and stepping in to help explain the Star Wars timeline shifts with new tie-in stories. I mean, specifically, they're going to launch a new Galaxy's Edge comic that's designed to explain why classic trilogy characters like Luke and Leia and Han and Chewbacca, why they're suddenly showing up in Batuu.
And that, to me, is just fascinating. Because, again, this land was deliberately designed to be locked tightly into the Disney Star Wars produced trilogy era, right?
Oh yeah, exactly. And now instead of just shrugging, saying theme park logic, Marvel's treating this like a story problem that needs a narrative solution. And I think what we've got from what I read, the synopsis is Luke and Leia and Chewbacca. They traveled to Batuu. They're chasing a powerful relic, and it's basically giving, like I said, there's an in-universe reason to be there. And while it doesn't spell everything out, Vader is expected to factor in, so this also helps justify his presence in the land. So I mean, they're doing some stuff to qualify their presence.
And more to the point, Marvel is now doing what Marvel does best, which is backfilling continuity.
Oh, well, yeah, that's what they do, isn't it? I mean, the parks, they get flexibility, the guests will get their familiarity, and Marvel quietly makes sure the timeline still mostly holds together. It's like canon duct tape, but obviously very high quality duct tape.
Wow, which would have sounded wild just 20 years ago.
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, now it seems like a completely natural thing inside of the Disney ecosystem.
But for me, again, what's interesting about this is Marvel is now helping Star Wars stay flexible, while Marvel itself is learning how to stay flexible without losing meaning. Marvel, Lucasfilm Parks, they're not siloed anymore.
Oh no, they're all harmonized now.
Which, again, oddly enough, folks, brings us back to the overall theme of this week's episode.
Disney is not erasing the past.
It's choosing which parts of it still work.
Which, I mean, you think about it, it gives itself permission to let go of the rest.
And what ties it all together is trust. Trusting that the audience will follow along. And speaking of which, we're hoping that our audience will follow along after this ad break. But first, this.
The world moves fast. Your workday, even faster. Pitching products, drafting reports, analyzing data. Microsoft 365 Copilot is your AI assistant for work. Built into Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and other Microsoft 365 apps you use. Helping you quickly write, analyze, create, and summarize. So you can cut through clutter and clear a path to your best work. Learn more at Microsoft.com/M365 Copilot.
And we're back, folks. So, again, taking a look back at everything Dan and I have discussed on this week's episode of Marvelous Disney, that, when you step back and take a look at all of this. The Marvel's marketing strategy, Lucasfilm's leadership transition, Galaxy's Edge evolving. None of it feels reactionary, right?
No, I mean, I think it feels almost curated.
So, is this, in fact, what Disney's real strategy for 2026 is?
Yeah, fewer hard resets and more smooth transitions.
Which, in today's mediascape, might actually be healthier for the audience, also for the people who are making these stories.
Oh, well, it does allow things to sort of breathe again.
One final thought, though, and just want to lay this out here because don't honestly be surprised, folks, if this breathing space, as Dan just described it, we're now seeing, being folded into Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. Don't be surprised if this inspires a similar loosening up in the Avengers campuses that we've seen built at Disney California Adventure and over in what will soon be known as Disney Adventure World in France.
Oh, so, what's that going to mean for Hong Kong Disneyland, Stark Expo, and that theme park's nano battle? Or the Spider-Man coaster, which is what? That's already under construction over at Shanghai Disneyland, right?
Well, to be blunt, Dan, it means that we're going to have all sorts of great fodder for future episodes of this podcast. And on that forward-looking note, I think it's time that we shut down this week's episode of Marvelous Disney. So, Dan, where can the nice folks find you?
Okay, if you want to look up the Hubbubbery, TheHubbery on YouTube, on Facebook, on Instagram, you'll find me there. We've got all sorts of foolishness that will hopefully keep you entertained for a little bit.
As for me, we got a lot of other shows we do here at Jim Hill Media. We got Disney Dish with Len Testa. I just talked about Drew Taylor, who I do fine tuning with. We also have the Epic Universal podcast I do with Eric Hersey. Eric produces a lot of the shows here at Jim Hill Media. There's also I Want That Too. That's our Disney merch podcast that I do with Eric's lovely bride, Lauren. Also later on this month, we've got a brand new Disney Unpacked. That's the Patreon thing I do with Mr. Testa and veteran Imagineer Jim Schull. And we're actually using Tokyo Disneyland's Pooh's Honey Hunt as a way to pay tribute to the late, great Eddie Sato, themed entertainment professional we recently lost. And speaking of great, I again want to thank Eric Hersey as well as David Gray for the great job they do when it comes to editing and the overall production of this podcast. Also, got a favor for asking you folks, if you could please head on over to Apple Podcasts and rate and review this show. Again, we're 9 episodes into the relaunch of Marvelous Disney, and there's still people who are finding it. So, but some of them are finding it on social media. And speaking of which, Dan, social media wise, where can the nice folks find you?
Oh, yeah. If you just want to find me, myself and I, you can find me at Dan Graney, DANGRANEY 67 on Facebook. And I'm on X. Don't really do much there, but mostly on Facebook.
Okay. Speaking of X, I'm there myself. Also on Instagram is Jim Hill Media, and over at Facebook is Jim Hill Media News. And I guess it's going to do it for now, folks. So thanks for listening to this edition of Marvelous Disney, and Dan and I will see you soon.